Hello, everyone, and welcome to Logical Reads, when we take the Vulcan approach to our Star Trek literature. I'm your host, Clarence Brown, and I'm joined by none other than Jonathan Shorts. How you doing, man?
I am good, man. I am good. How about yourself?
Man, I can't complain, but I have to take you for task for not, and I guess this will give it away when we recorded this, but you have not finished Star Trek Discovery, so I'm kind of a little miffed at you, sir. You're falling off. You're falling off, man.
Man, you're going to put me on blast like that? That's just wrong.
I have to hold your feet to the fire, man. I have to.
That sucks.
But
listen. Listen. That just means if you save it all for one long binge, it makes the story that much better.
Okay. That's one way of putting it. That's fair enough. And we are back by popular demand because people have been asking where is the next review for the book. So we have to get on it, man, because we've, things happen, vacations, life, summer stuff. So jobs, and we're back to it. We're gonna try to get on task and keep the streak going here. And of course, we're here to review chapters 7 and 8 of the Autobiography of Benjamin Sisko, told to Jake, written by Jake, written by Derek Attico. Inception, guys. And let's get into it. Here in chapter 7, New Worlds, where the Sisko household seems to have embraced the thought of getting out the house, getting out of New Orleans, and going on vacations, and I guess this is all underlined by the fact that they're letting Benjamin pursue his love or his journey into Starfleet. So let's get into it, man. How do we feel about this in this chapter, which again, like, is primarily them going on vacations and kind of finding the family finding their footing, is how I will put it. But we start with this trip to Bozeman, man. We have to talk about it because there's some strong lower deck ties in here. Well, how do you feel about this whole idea of everybody going on vacations and them branching out a little bit?
I mean, how can that not be the place you take your children? Like, can you just imagine, like, right now, if there was a possibility that you could just take 3 days and take your children to go into outer space and back? Like, how can you deny them that?
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's funny because I have to admit I recoiled at the idea a bit when it was first in Lower Decks, although Geordie foreshadowed it in the First Contact movie. But in Lower Decks, they kind of flushed it out. It was a whole theme park in Bozeman, Montana. And in Lower Decks, they actually went on the same ride that's described here. I don't know if you've caught up on the Lower Decks episode, but they went on the same ride described in this book. So I was like, oh, did he like see that come out and then he instantly put it in the book? But I still thought it was pretty cool. When you have a chance to take a spaceship, although it's a replica of the real one is in the Smithsonian, to take a trip with a holographic Zephyr Cochrane piloting your ship. Why wouldn't you take that as you pursue your idea of going into Starfleet?
Absolutely. And I would imagine that kind of shaped, which he says so as much, like that shaped his Starfleet career from there on out. Like, could you imagine a Sisko that didn't experience that first?
Oh, no doubt. And the idea of getting to experience that with your family, who were, for all intents and purposes, Luddites, which was, again, kind of the culture of the New Orleans that he was in, but they were very anti-technology. And all of a sudden, they're all, even they mentioned in the book about, his father getting on a transporter for the first time and him getting on the first time since his accident. Yeah, it's kind of cool seeing this family branch out and do other things.
Is that the only time we've seen his dad on a transporter?
Did he refuse to do transporters in Deep Space Nine?
He did.
It may be the only time. I can't recall another time for sure.
He did it that one time, and I guess the family vacations, and then he's just like, screw it, it's done.
Yeah. Apparently, when they started doing these vacations, or as they tried to, I guess they use it as an excuse for learning. It was part of the homeschooling, to take these vacations. But yeah, apparently he was doing it, a lot, and even beaming back to the restaurant to supervise, and then coming back that night. So, interesting stuff there to see him kind of step out. And it's also interesting just to see how Benjamin has advanced from being in a hospital and putting together these model ships to actually going and actually taking a trip into Phoenix. Just kind of sounds like a dream if you could do something like that. So yeah, I jelly.
Very much, very much.
And it was interesting for them seeing how small Earth is as they warped away and warped back. So yeah, I really enjoyed all that.
You know what I was thinking about when I was reading this was I kind of reflected back on William Shatner taking the Blue Origin space flight and his words after which.
Yeah. That does kind of put that in context if you think about that trip. Yeah, because he was very taken aback from that trip, and he was lost for words. So it does seem like a similar experience here. And of course, these kids want to get back on and do it again, which is kids. Interesting stuff here. Talking about his family. Most of this chapter is that trip to Bozeman, and then like fleshing out more of his family, his sister, her love of these braids, these Bantu, if I'm saying that correctly.
Bantu knots,
yeah, and them visiting Africa. I thought was really interesting. And even when you get into Elias being the son who was into food, and he's like a xenocultural food person. I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
I am upset that DS9 never fleshed out some of these brothers and sisters. That would have been a great story. Like some of those filler episodes that we needed every now and then. That would have been a great story. That would have made these chapters even better.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because this book makes their family seem so interesting. It's almost like we just have a series called the Siskos. It will be interesting because, man, the way it's laid out in this book, I'm really enjoying it. So good stuff. And then the other brother, David, was a sports guy. They call it paralysis. Yeah, wow, paralysis squares. And which is Parisi squares, apparently is date. Now, have we ever seen Parisi squares in the show proper? I've heard them mention it plenty of times, but I don't know if we ever seen it.
So that's been a going complaint with Trekkies for years, is that they make such a big deal about this game, and it has never been shown on screen at all. I think the closest we've gotten to it was if I remember correctly, it was an alien species playing a game, and it was compared to Parisi squares on Earth, but it wasn't exactly. So I think that's the closest we've gotten to it.
Yeah, and I don't know if I knew that it was so dangerous. So the way the book lays it out is, paralysis might be an outcome when you play this game because it's just that dangerous. Of course, his brother played baseball too, and Sisko Benjamin, before he got the love of baseball, was playing with his brother, helping him out, playing catch with him and stuff. So I found that pretty cool as well.
Hey, just to go to a side note here, I got a quiz question for you, real quick.
Uh-oh. Why are you gonna put me on the spot, bro? Why you gonna? What you got, sir?
So we have seen the Phoenix on screen in episode somewhere. Do you remember where that was?
We seen the Phoenix on screen in an episode? Is that the question?
Yes. Where was it?
Not the movie. Where did we see it? Now, we saw it a lot in Enterprise and intro. But in an episode. Is that correct. The answer?
Yes.
Cool. And have we not seen it? It seemed like we've seen it somewhere else, though, if I'm remembering correctly, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
I think we saw it in an episode of, I do believe, Voyager, kind of when they went back in time.
That's what I'm thinking. Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if we saw the entire ship or we just saw like the inside, the cockpit area.
And of course, saw the lower decks as well. So I think I want to put that question out there to whoever might be listening to this. When have we seen the Phoenix in an episode of Star Trek? When have we seen it in an episode? And we've already said we've seen it in the intro of Enterprise, but I know we've seen it elsewhere. I know we could probably Google it in 5 seconds, but you know, off your dome, who knows that? That would be pretty awesome. And we're almost done. I mean, this chapter was pretty much just all of the family and what the family is doing. But there's one part of it that I want to mention because I thought it was really interesting, where Benjamin is talking to Jake, and he tells Jake, and he's talking about the prophets, and he said, he's talking about living linearly versus, without time, how the prophets live. And he said, we can learn from our mistakes. We can learn from our mistakes as well as cherish the moments that will never come again. This is all lost to the prophets in the eternal infinite of the now. So it's pretty cool stuff there.
Good stuff.
And, any other takeaways from 7 before we get into chapter 8?
Other than Sisko with cornrows.
This hair, man. So I thought he had got cornrows before, but apparently I guess those are just braids. She braided his hair the last time.
Oh, yeah, I guess I do remember that, yeah.
He's like, that's when I started to know how I look as a man. What?
Oh, man.
Okay. Hey, but I'm here for it. Maybe get some Chat GPT. What's the other image thing? Let's get that going. Let's get some Avery Brooks and cornrows. Let's see how that looks. I kind of want that. Maybe we can get that for the cover of this episode.
Hey, maybe we can open it up for our listeners to have a little competition and see who can send us the best image.
Using it's not Chat GPT. Is it Midjourney? What's the image generation? I know Midjourney is one of them. Using one of the AI image generation tools, who can make the best quality Benjamin Sisko in cornrows? We wait with bated breath. Let's get into chapter 8, and the title for chapter 8 is Rules. What are the rules of life? What are the rules when you're in a new environment, I guess? Benjamin is going to find out. So we start this chapter with Benjamin, his parents coming in and sitting down with him. And, they bring up the entrance exam, which he's been taking these preliminary exams to get ready for when he takes the real one. And he finds out that he's tested so freaking high that they want to get him in there early. Now, I don't know why this part of the book is throwing me so much for a loop, because I've never really thought of Benjamin Sisko as, not to say he's not smart, but I never thought of him as being the ship engineer wizard. He's reading all Scotty's manuals from back in the day. I never thought of him as being the ship wizard, and I never thought of him as being like top of the class. And it's not that I didn't think that it was possible. It's just kind of, I don't remember it being mentioned in the show at all. What are you thinking about? What do you think about Benjamin in the early entry into Starfleet, or the possibility of early entry into Starfleet?
So I kind of agree with you here. And I think it's a lot to do with, we see Ben like just come in a catastrophe as a leader, and he has enough smart people around him. He's never really had to rely on that, although we see glimpses of his intelligence here and there. But it was shocking because in my mind reading this, I'm like, I've never heard him mention any interest in how the Defiant was like powered or engineering, or like I never saw him and O'Brien like geek out over some new technology. Like I just never seen that. So it was a bit off-putting for sure, because you still have that Benjamin Sisko image in your head, and then you're reading this and it's like a totally different person. And I, honestly, a lot of times I'm picturing Jake Sisko as I'm reading this.
That's it. You know, I think we mentioned this before on one of our other reviews, but the only time that I can remember that he really expressed like an extreme interest in ships is when he built that Bajoran ship with he and Jake for that voyage. But other than that, maybe I'm just not remembering. I need to go back and watch, but I don't remember just this fondness of ships.
I just thought there was more of a interest in history rather than engineering of ships.
Yes. And that might be the thing that I thought of him more of, as being like a history geek than anything. But interesting stuff there. And so he gets the early admission, the opportunity for early admission into Starfleet, and his parents gives him the advice that he should not go. He eventually decides to trust his parents. So instead of going into an early interest into Starfleet Academy, he's going to high school. He's going to Booker T High School to learn what he don't know, or because he doesn't know what he don't know, and this is an experience his parents thinks that he should have to get his feet wet, so to speak. Probably more for a social thing than any, to apparently from this chapter learn how to stand up for yourself, and I guess found out how to navigate the rules of how things work. You know, it's so cliche though, because you see this in almost every movie. The kid goes to high school, he meets the bullies. You have the one jerk, in this case is an Andorian, who is causing havoc for the innocent, I'm not going to say meek and mild, but the innocent Benjamin Sisko, who's never been ventured from the house to any school, and he's seeing all these kids in line at the replicators, and he doesn't, he's all new to him, and he has his 5-star cooked meal in front of him from his father. Let's talk about it, man. Benjamin goes to high school. What are your thoughts, man, on a green Benjamin going to high school for the first time with his backpack and everything?
I agree with you. It was very, very cliche-ish. And, once we realized that he was going to school, like, I put this whole thing, all that story was kind of written out in my mind before it happened. So even down to he's going to get bullied in the lunchroom, because my first thought was they're all going to be using replicators and he's not. Now, I didn't think he would be bringing a lunch to school. I thought he was just going to be confused on how to use the replicator.
Yeah. And there's also the interesting dynamic of, he's used to the Nolans cuisine, and the first thing he kind of rubs into is this food that this Andorian has, and he don't want to eat that because it's like basically slop to him. But I will give him credit for trying to show cultural awareness, and he didn't try to crap on whatever he was doing. He's like, that ain't for me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so cliche to have this Andorian bully, the cut off, shirt, arms exposed, and has his gang behind him. It was so cliche, man.
So this was also very interesting because the Andorian, it wasn't exactly Andorian cuisine. He was eating Xindi insectoid species food, which I don't think we've actually seen the insectoids mentioned anywhere else other than Enterprise.
Yeah, I did find that odd that it was Xindi food.
What does insectoids eat?
What do bugs eat? I don't know. Good question. Other bugs? I don't know. That's interesting. But the lesson, I think, is the huge lesson here is he has his people bullying him, and we kind of see him cower and run a little bit in this chapter. Let's talk about the conversation he has with his mom, and I don't quite know how I feel about this. I think it's the right lesson, but it's a hard one to learn, because I can imagine, I put 14-year-old, 15-year-old Clarence in that position, maybe a little bit younger, put me in that position, and I get into a fight. I come home and my mom tells me, you going right back and handling this, bro. You going up to him and punching him in the face. I don't know how I feel, but she chose violence. Right move? What do you think about that, man?
Well, I think that's going to be up for debate depending on your environment when you were raised. So, me personally, I've had that exact situation. And I remember it's probably fourth grade, fifth grade. I came home crying. Somebody was bullying me on the bus. And I was told, if you come home crying because somebody's picking on you, you're going to get your butt whooped and you're going to go back to school. Like, it was important that I learned to stand up for myself. And that, I think that's a lesson that a lot of people need. Now, I don't know, this day and age, it's hard to say you could tell a child to do that because we don't really know what's going on in schools nowadays. But I do get the point, and I agree with the point that, and I mean, again, this is Benjamin Sisko. If he hadn't had that lesson, can you imagine how many times in DS9 that he's been pushed around and he kind of stood his ground? I mean, like the point that sticks out the most. Yeah, exactly. Q.
It's an interesting lesson because, again, we're trying to relate this back to our own lives. And for me, I never was at a new school where I didn't know anyone. I never was without my cousins around me, my group of people around me, supporting me. Everybody knew who I was, kind of type, that type of thing. I definitely got into fights, but it wasn't in a situation where I thought I was, scared for my life. Maybe once I thought of, but for him to tuck tail and run to his house and try to sneak upstairs, I just thought, oh man, I felt so bad for him, dude. I felt so. How did your situation turn out, by the way?
Well,
inquiry minds.
You know what? It really does sound cliche, but my situation turned out exactly like you're always told it turned out. When you stand up to them, they usually stop because it's no longer interesting, right? So that's how my situation turned out. But I'm also was raised differently from you because I was an only child. I didn't have any family in school. Yeah. So, I mean, it was just, I was already in that position. But it is true, if you stand up for yourself, it stops. If you don't, it continues. Because usually they're not bullying because they're mean people per se. It's really they're bored and they need an easy target to entertain themselves. And by entertaining themselves, they entertain everybody else and they get a laugh. If you stand up to them, it's no longer fruitful. So they leave you alone.
Yeah, man. What an amazing lesson from Mama Sisko there. I'm
shocked it wasn't Papa Sisko that did that lesson, though.
Another thing I really got from this story or this book so far is you see how much that the mother was the backbone of the family. She really was a driving force for especially in Benjamin's case, and you even read with the other kids how much of a force she was. Because really, the dad, he was just mostly about the cooking, keeping the family afloat type of thing. But she was the one managing the house. And that's usually the case in most families. So kudos to moms out there. And there's interesting, before we get into like this kind of vision, or was it a vision? I don't know. We'll talk about it. But another good thing that she says in here is sometimes you have to get into good trouble. So I found that really, really interesting. All type of cultural references here to black people in general. The Booker T. Washington High School, which I guess is around now in New Orleans. He said 1939, I think. But I didn't research it, but I should have researched it if it's currently a high school.
Well, I'm sure there's like 30 Booker T. Washington high schools around the country. So
yeah. So I just found all of that extremely.
You know what I kind of got?
And the Good Trouble saying, let me say the Good Trouble. I guess that, I don't know if it originated, but that's John Lewis, the senator that died, civil rights leader that died not too long ago. I think he had a book called Good Trouble. So I don't know if he originated the phrase, but it's probably a phrase that's been around for a while. But go ahead, sir.
Well, this chapter I kind of got, and maybe this is just for me, but, Sisko has, he says a statement to Jake that I think kind of sums up this chapter for me. And it's, he said, I need you to do me a favor. He said, you must take care of Cassidy and your new baby sister or brother. And this was the important part. He said, and allow them to take care of you. And I see a lot of that in this family. It's not just dad taking care of the family. It's not just mom. It's not just the kid. Like, everybody is contributing to the success of each other. Yeah. And I feel like this chapter just kind of revolves around that.
Yeah. And also, just to add on to that, a few touching moments where he's talking about, there's this tribal mask, I forgot the name of, that's in his office, or I guess that was in the their quarters. He said, put everything else in storage, but that's yours, hang it up somewhere close. And he even mentions about that he never learned to braid JJ's I think it was JJ's hair. His sister. And he was telling Jake to learn from Cassidy, because you might have to braid your little sister's hair or braid your own child's hair, so just great stuff, family building stuff there that I thought was really, really good.
Absolutely.
Want to get into the flash back forward. I don't even know what this is. The Vision. And we go to Bajor thousands of years in the past. What? I'm so confused by this. This happening here.
I kind of took it as a vision from the prophets, like he's gotten throughout DS9. He's usually on board the ship, and then all of a sudden everything goes white, and he's talking to the prophets. I find it strange because technically he's standing there where he usually goes when he has the vision. So now, while he's there, he's having a vision going somewhere else. And it kind of threw me. And then it happened in the middle of like a conversation with Jake, and it kind of threw me off. I thought I was missing pages.
It had me wondering, like, is it a vision? And I know there's people that's read ahead and know this, but I'm like, is he actually time traveling? Is this part of the book that we're going to get laid out? Is that, he has another mission with the prophets, and maybe the rest of this book we're going to be dealing with this wormhole opening up and the Dominion fighters coming through. So much about this part of the book that really, I was just like, what? And this Stingray-esque ship slash, I almost called it like a sentient ship thing that's flying over Bajor and covering half of the continent that he's on.
Was that the prophets ship? Army or something? I mean, because I had to kind of go back after I read further on, and I realized the Dominion ships came through the wormhole, and then there was an epic battle, and I kind of got thrown off because I was like, wait, I didn't know there was two people. So as I go back and read, I think those Stingray ships would be the prophets' ships. If they have ships, I didn't know they had ships.
Yeah, and also I was wondering, and they even kind of allude to this, was the wormhole even there 1,000 years in the past? Because it seemed like he was, and I can't remember from the actual show, but it seemed like he was acting if it shouldn't have been there that far in the past. It seemed like it was close. I don't know. It really confused me. And we even see Sarah there pop up and kind of talk to him. Trying to, as he tries to figure out what the heck is going on. So he's in the thick of it. It felt less like a vision to me and more like he was really there.
Really?
So, yeah. And I'm not quite sure why. It felt so real. It felt kind of real to me.
I just don't know that they ever, transported him or took him anywhere. It's always been a vision, but then again, we don't know what he's been doing since DS9, and But I just kind of took it as
true.
it had to be another vision.
It's always been a vision, and he hasn't never really been there. Is that a fact? I guess it is, though. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I assume that it can take him anywhere, because how does Sarah get to where she's going as a prophet? She gets around to different places, so there has to be a mechanism for her
Has
to
she
do
though?
that.
Have we seen her go anywhere as a prophet?
Well, she was on Earth.
That was before she was a prophet, though, right? Well, my next question, and I hate if you had this on your notes. I don't want to spoil it, but at the end she says the emissary has spoken. Like, she's the emissary at that time. So what if she was emissary and had Ben? Like when Sarah and Ben's father was together, she was the emissary of the prophets.
Let me look. Sometimes you need to speak to people in a language they can understand before they can hear you. And she's talking. The emissary has spoken. Oh man, yeah, I think you might be right. Is she the former? Is that how Benjamin acquired the emissary ship? I don't know if that's the right word. Is that it was kind of passed down to him? See, now you got my head spinning a little bit, because that's kind of it. Was she the former emissary? I guess we have to read on, guys. I'm honestly, that this little vision, whatever, it puzzled me completely, because I'm like, what is going on here? Obviously, we're going to get an answer to that. Darn you, Derek Tyler Attico.
And
I thought
Jake
this was gonna be just like an easy little read. And Benjamin Sisko. Whoever wrote this.
Oh man.
Yeah, man. But I want to see that play out. Of course, it's interesting. One of the people who's been messaging about when we're going to do the next review, our friend Marge. She was like, what did you get to that part of the book? Have y'all talked about that? You got to get to that part of the book. And at the time, I hadn't even read it yet, but she didn't spoil what it was. And I was like, what? Oh, and then I immediately went and read it. But yeah, good stuff. Any other takeaways from these two chapters other than there's a lot more to get to, and it looks like we've only cracked the surface. Anything else before we kind of wrap up the review of these two chapters?
Like I said, it wasn't a lot here to like really highlight, but it was not bad. It was actually great. I really enjoyed it. It's just not a lot to flesh out in it. I mean, it did what its purpose was to set up whatever we're going to read in the oncoming chapters.
Oh man, yeah. It certainly seems like it's finna kick into high gear. Starfleet Academy, maybe more of these vision time, whatever's going on with these asides that we're getting. These vignettes of something that we're getting where his training is just beginning. Like, can't you do this another time? You're the masters of time and space. You need to. I'm trying to talk to Jake. Quit bothering me. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. And honestly, I've said this before. This is making me really want to go back and watch DS9, because I know there's a lot of nuanced things that I'm missing. But it's good to have the Trek historian himself on with me, because he is the master of all things DS9, man. What have you been up to, man, other than, these reviews? Anything you want to talk about or plug before we kind of end up in this review?
Man, not really. Like I said, I've been super busy, so I hadn't really had a whole lot of time to do much of anything or watch anything. I want to watch the second Dune movie that's available. I just hadn't got to it. Good. I'm excited about that. I've also been watching, whenever I have time, I watch Blue Bloods, which is an old TV show. So not really much going on, man. I am with you, though. I think I want to go back and watch DS9 again for the 12th time, probably. But it's just such a good series. It's such a good series. So if I had to plug anything right now, it would be, please go watch DS9, especially if you're reading this book.
Sweet. If you have questions or comments, what did we get wrong? What did we get right? You can send that in to feedback@discussingtrek.com or hit us up at Discussing Trek on any and all social media. It's been fun doing these. I really enjoyed it, John, and it's so glad to have you back. We're going to try to stay on track a little bit with this one so we can get these out at a faster clip. So thanks to each and every one of you guys for listening. And until next time, the Logic Library is closed. That's so corny.